Hello everyone, welcome to yet another session of the daily news analysis by SRIRAM'S IAS, where we take up the important articles featuring in the Hindu newspaper and break them down for our understanding from the examination point of view. Let's take up today's discussion by discussing the important articles from the newspaper. Now the important articles which appear in the newspaper, the first one of them is on our screen, which reads, "Privilege of MPs does not extend to criminal cases," says Venkaiah Naidu, who is the Vice President of India. Now this is a very important news article which deals with the privileges part of the MPs in the parliament. So therefore this becomes important for us from the point of view of GS2 in syllabus, where we study the important aspects of polity. So what has happened? Why is this article appeared in the newspaper? So we know that there are a lot of cases with respect to the enforcement directorate going on a lot of MPs, where the MPs are summoned, they are interrogated at hours at stretch. So a lot of MPs started to protest in the Rajya Sabha, saying that they should be protected from these summons, since they are MPs in the Rajya Sabha and they should have certain privileges with respect to the same. In response to this allegation, or one can say proposition, the Vice President has come out and said that these privileges are not available in criminal matters. So if an act of money laundering comes into an act of criminal offence, for those acts the privileges of MPs would not apply. So from the examination point of view, we will try to understand what exactly are parliamentary privileges and what is this distinction between civil cases and criminal cases. So let's try to understand. When we talk about parliamentary privileges, what do we mean by parliamentary privileges? So any representative who from a constituency gets elected and becomes the member of parliament either in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, in order to perform their functions in the most judicious manner and efficient manner, there are certain privileges granted to these representatives or members of parliament to perform their functions, granted under Article 105 of the Constitution. There are certain rights and immunities. So when we talk about what they are special rights and immunities that would be given to these MPs, which are either given individually and collectively, so that they can effectively discharge their functions. So it is given to make their tasks easy and make their functioning easy. So Article 105 of the Constitution expressly mentions two privileges. That first is the freedom of speech, since they should have the freedom of speech to voice the needs of the people of their constituency. The first privilege that they get is that of freedom of speech, which means that they can speak whatever they want in the floor of the parliament excuse me, and the right of publication of its proceedings. Second right is the right of publication of the proceeding which they can do. So these are the two express rights which are mentioned under Article 105 of the Constitution. But other than that, certain immunities are also granted to the MPs, which mean that while they are serving their term of the member of parliament, if there is any civil case against them, they would not be taken to jail or taken to court, and they would be immune from institution of that civil suit, which is incorporated under the Code of Civil Procedure under the Indian law. So apart from these privileges as specified, the Code of Civil Procedure provides for freedom from arrest and detention of members under the civil process due to continuance of the meeting of the House or a committee thereof, and 40 days before its commencement and 40 days after the conclusion, which would mean that when the session is going on, 40 days before the session is commencing and 40 days after the session, and during the session, during all of this period, if there is any civil case that is instituted against a member of parliament, that member of parliament would be immune from arrest. So no one would be able to arrest him or her, and no one would be able to detain him or her. So this is the immunity that has been granted to the members of parliament. And here is where the Vice President has come out to clarify that this immunity is only for a civil case. Only for civil cases, if such kind of a civil case is instituted, the member of parliament will get the immunity. But if the case is of a criminal nature, then this immunity does not follow, and the member of parliament would then be treated as a normal citizen of law, and normal the enforcement agencies would be able to carry out their functions normally with respect to any other citizen that they can. So this is the clarification which the Vice President has made. That is why it becomes important for us to know this concept, what exactly is privilege motion. So privileges of the MPs. Now there is something known as privilege motion, which means that if anyone feels that a member of parliament has breached his or her privilege in the parliament, so the aggrieved party can institute a motion in the parliament. So this is a motion against breaching of the privilege. So which means that when any of these rights and immunities are disregarded, the offence is called a breach of privilege and is punishable under the law of parliament. So a notice is moved in the form of a motion by any member of either house against those being held guilty for breach of privilege. So those people who are who purportedly have breached the privilege of the parliament, any party can move a motion against them and they can be punished under law. So that is about the privilege motion. Secondly, what is the role of speaker or chairman of the Rajya Sabha in this case? So in this case, the Vice President, who is also the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, has come out and clarified. So they are the nodal bodies to decide upon the privileges. So they can decide on the privilege motion himself or herself, or refer it to the privilege committee of the parliament. And if the speaker or chair gives consent under relevant rules, the member concerned is given an opportunity to make a short statement. They would be given an opportunity to be heard, and this is where the speaker or the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha will decide upon this motion, right? Then who is it applicable to? These privilege motion, these parliamentary privileges, the members of the parliament are the first party to enjoy these privileges. But apart from the MPs, there are certain other people as well who enjoy these privileges. So the constitution also extends the parliamentary privileges to those persons who are entitled to speak and take part in the proceedings. And who are these people? Apart from the MPs, certain personalities such as the Attorney General of India, they have a right to participate in the proceedings of the parliament. So they also enjoy those privileges at the time they are doing so. But the another fact important is that, which can be asked in the prelims, is that these parliamentary privileges do not extend to the president, which means that the article 105 does not cater to president's immunities and privileges. They are covered separately under Article 361 of the Constitution. So this can be asked as a question, which means that the parliamentary privileges gives privileges to president as well. That would be an incorrect statement, and the privileges for the president are covered under a separate provision of the Constitution, that is Article 361. So this was the important discussion with respect to parliamentary privileges and the vital information that we should know from the examination point of view. So with this, let's move on to our next article for the day. Now the next article which appears in the newspaper reads BBPS or Bharat Bill Payment System to take up inbound bill payments. Now this is with respect to the important service of the RBI and in the banking sector, which is the Bharat Bill Payment System. And we have seen multiple questions on UPI and such financial services that the RBI and other institutions have taken up. That is why this system becomes quite important for us to know about from the examination point of view, and this will become important for us from the GS3 point of view for prelims, especially for prelims. So what is the Bharat Bill Payment System? The Bharat Bill, as we can see, the word bill payment is there in the name. So the BBPS is an RBI conceptualized system driven by the National Payments Corporation of India. So RBI has conceptualized it, and it is run by the NPCI or National Payments Corporation of India. So this is nothing but a platform for people of India, residents of India, to make all kinds of bill payments that are there. The cable bill payments, electricity bill payments, mobile recharge, all of these bills can be done by a one-stop payment platform for all kind of bills, providing an interoperable and accessible anytime, anywhere bill payment service to customers across the country with certainty, reliability and safety of transactions. So this is the service that the Bharat Bill Payment System grants to the residents of the country, and payments through BBPS may be made using cash, transfer checks and electronic modes, and bill aggregators and banks who will function as operating units will carry out these transactions for the customers. So this is how it goes on, and as per the RBI data, more than 20,000 billers or more than 20,000 people are there on the platform who are paying their bills, and more than 8 crore transactions are processed monthly according to RBI's data. So this means that 20,000 billers are using this platform and paying their bills, and transactions worth rupees 8 crore is taking place on a monthly basis. So which means that this system is being quite helpful to people. And when we say that this bill payment system is encompassing all one-stop platform for bill payments. So what is the new thing that the RBI has done right now? It has enabled the system to take up inbound bill payments, which means that now this platform has allowed to do cross-border payments, which can boost the inflow of forex into India, which means that the NRIs or the non-resident India living outside India, if they want to make payments for their families or other relatives situated outside India, and they want to make the bill payments in India, this cross-border payment has now been facilitated under the BBPS, which means that it is for convenience for the NRIs and their families staying in India, especially the senior citizens. So a person sitting outside the country can also make a bill payment for a person sitting inside the country. This is what the service has been extended to right now. Right. So when we talk about the NPCI managing it, let's also look at what is NPCI. The National Payments Corporation of India. It is basically a public sector organization. It's an umbrella organization for all retail payment system. So this NPCI handles a host of services. This NPCI handles the UPI as well, BBPS as well, and other services. So it was set up with the guidance and support of the Reserve Bank of India and Indian Banks Association. So it's run by two organizations. One is the RBI and other is the Indian Banks Association. This is the organization which has 10 promoter banks. So these two units together run the NPCI, which manage a host of financial services in the country, such as the premier ones such as the UPI and the Bharat Bill Payment System. So this was the important discussion with respect to this scheme, and let's move on to the next article. The next article now, which appears on our screen, reads, High Court questions need for ration card to avail aid. Now this particular article pertains to the important scheme of Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi scheme. This is the scheme which is a centrally sponsored scheme instituted by the government of India to grant financial aid to those people who are below the poverty line for their treatment of life-threatening diseases. We know that a lot of times people who are below the poverty line, they are living on such meager amounts that taking care of health, and in case of a life-threatening disease, the amount of expenditure that goes on in hospitalization, it becomes near impossible for these people to manage it. That is why the scheme was incorporated to grant financial aid in terms of medical expenses to people below the poverty line who are facing life-threatening diseases. So the article says that, so what happened? That a young that a 30-year-old woman who had cancer went to AIIMS Delhi in order to avail this scheme, that she has cancer, a life-threatening disease, and she is below poverty line, so she should get the benefit of Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi. But she was denied the service on the basis that she did not have a ration card. So the petition, this woman from her lawyer, via her lawyer, had to go to the High Court and submit that the demand for a ration card in this scheme is an irrational one. How can a ration card just prove that she is below the poverty line or not? So the demand for a ration card and the non-availability of the ration card with this woman denied her this service and denied her the benefit under this scheme. So on that question, High Court has questioned the government, asking that is the availability or is the requirement of ration card a valid requirement? Can we not do without it? Let's say a person does not have a ration card, but they are below the poverty line and they should get the benefit. So in that case, what should happen? So this is an important question that the High Court asked the government, which can which should alter the position and maybe do away with the requirement of ration card. So on this basis, we'll understand the important pointers related to the Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi scheme. So what is the scheme? As we saw, it's the financial aid provided to people below poverty line to take care of life-threatening diseases. So it's a centrally sponsored scheme which was earlier referred to as the National Illness Assistance Fund, which was established in 1997. So it was always obviously revamped to be named Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi scheme, and it functions under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It aims at providing financial assistance to the patients who live under the poverty line, and it covers patients suffering from diseases that are identified as life-threatening. So 3 conditions: persons should be below poverty line, and they should be suffering from life-threatening diseases. 2 conditions. And as a part of this scheme, patients can avail of medical treatment at any hospital or institute providing super speciality facilities or any other government hospital. So a grant would be given by the state government and central government to these empaneled hospitals, and this aggrieved person can go to that empaneled hospital and avail this scheme. So the state always provides financial assistance to people belonging to below poverty line group. As a part of this scheme, this assistance is given to patients with life-threatening diseases in the form of a one-time grant. So remember that this payment is not made to the patient, this payment is directly made to the hospital for the charges that occur for the treatment of this person. And this grant provides to the concerned medical superintendent of the particular medical institute or hospital. So this payment is not given to the patient, it is given to the institute or hospital where the treatment is being provided. Now, as per the Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi guidelines, the state and union territories within India are required to make their own state illness funds. How can we make this out? So there are 2 kinds of schemes. One is a central sector scheme and one is a centrally sponsored scheme. So whenever it's a central sector scheme, there are certain schemes such as the Manrega can be known as a central sector scheme. So in such schemes, all funding is given by the center, but when it is a centrally sponsored scheme, partial funding is given by the center and partial funding has to be given by the state for the same. So in the same manner, the state governments are also to contribute and make their own state illness funds, and the central government then provides the funds to the state, 50% of which it is provided by the center and 50% of it is to be provided by the state governments and UTs for the respective funds. So always remember this distinction of central sector schemes and centrally sponsored schemes. Whenever we see that it's a centrally sponsored scheme, the funding would be divided between the state and the center. So this was a discussion today with respect to the important articles. We'll meet again on Monday discussing the important articles from the newspaper. Thank you.